Alright, we should be live. We're back. We're working on Electro, Assaulting Battery. This should be the finale. So, we're at 72 cards. I don't think I need to get him to exactly 60, because of how his abilities work. He should be able to function on lower amounts of mana, or like a lower land count. But I'm still not thrilled with having him be off by like 10 lands, so I want to cut at least 7 more cards out of the 12 that we would normally cut. So, head back to the list and try and figure this one out. Bolt, Soul Ring, Chain Lightning, All Staying, Incinerate, Gorilla Shaman. Yeah, with only Gorilla Shaman and Vandal Blast, I don't want to get rid of any other artifact destroying effects. Flame Rift. Direction. I mean, technically we have the 2 5-mana lessons, but Sulfuric Vortex, Extra Planar Lens, O-Stone, Doubling Cube stays, Rate of Fire's not going anywhere, Gauntlet of Power. Do I get rid of Gauntlet of Power, and then Gauntlet of Power can be the replacement for Gauntlet of Might for people that don't have it and don't run proxies? Because Cage Sun only affects your thing, so Cage Sun is the best one to have in play. Extra Planar Lens, while being a little bit awkward, especially with a slightly lower land count, is also the cheapest one to get going. So, those two both kind of want to stay in the deck. So, the 2 gauntlets are functionally the same, except that the one costs a single mana more to get down. So if I cut Gauntlet of Power, and then anybody who does not have Gauntlet of Might and doesn't do proxies can run Gauntlet of Power instead, as the slightly worse but more reasonably priced option. Maybe. I kind of want to run all of them, but maybe. Obviously, I want to run all of them. They've made it this far into the deck building process. Could be the Ingus. The problem is I have things like Jaws to punish opponents for ramping with treasure and whatnot. So, ramping with lands gets punished by the Ingus. That's true. I have cut all of my mana rocks. Do I have any artifacts with activated abilities left? I have the swords. Okay. I was about to say, could I run Null Rod in this deck? Because I don't have, I have like Soul Ring and that's it. But now I have Sword of Feast and Famine. That's true. I cut the other sword too, so it's just Sword of Feast and Famine. 1 or 2 other things. Unbreaker Devils I kind of want to keep, although they can go. They're a 6-drop. I have other ways to take advantage of instants and sorceries in my graveyard. I need cuts. Yeah, maybe now it's time for Charmbreaker Devils to finally go. It is a shame, though, at 6 mana. Once I have the 3 for Electro, they're literally 2 turns away regardless of anything else going on, but I just don't think I have room is the issue. Could still be Torolf. We've already gone over like where Torolf is at his strongest, but when he doesn't have those type of effects going on, then he's a 5/4 that occasionally deals a point or two of damage to the opponents, or like kills 2 utility creatures instead of 1 with a removal spell. So he is okay. Once you get him with the multipliers, that's where he gets completely out of hand, but we have to get there first, so maybe it is nice that he just kind of wins the game with Blasphemous Act or the other one, Sudden Demise. This it's gonna deal a ton of damage to everything. Oh, that means he's going to trigger a whole bunch, even though he's died, because everything was dealt lethal damage at the same time. And now he's going to deal all of that damage to you and you and you until I'm the only one left standing. It has 2 applications, the damage-based wraths and the damage multipliers, letting him get out of hand. Because if there are enough creatures in play, any burn spell can become lethal with Torolf and a damage multiplier. Because if the initial thing is not going to be lethal, then he doesn't have to deal it to the player. He can deal it to any other target. So the next creature in line takes the enhanced amount of damage, and now there's even more. You know, like I lightning bolt your one thing, and it gets tripled to 9. So the excess damage now, if the excess damage is more than 3, and I deal it to something else, that gets tripled, so it's 12 plus damage, and so on each time until the number gets high enough. Like, the opponent that made a bunch of 1/1s or 2/2s is not going to survive Torolf and a damage multiplier with any burn spell. Makes me want to keep him, because this is the most Torolf deck I've ever built, I think. I know he was in like one other deck where I tried to get him all the way through the end, and I forget if I succeeded now. I built so many commander decks this way. Crackle definitely stays. Crackle is one of the best, like, burn spell mana sinks. The only ones that I like more than it are things like, ooh, sorry, didn't hit the mic there. Things like Banefire, where if the X is high enough, it can't be countered or prevented. But I think this one is just a tiny bit too strong. Not play. Reduction to Annihilation stays for right now. Arcane Bombardment. Phyrexia. Sulfim the Mayhem Dominus. Beacon. It could be Sulfim or Twin Flame. But the more damage multipliers I cut, the easier it becomes to cut Torolf, so maybe not. It could also be Torbrand. Right now, Torbrand is mainly on the list because I have Nykthos and Nyx Lotus, and those 3 red pips in his mana cost are super helpful. Pain, Virtue of Courage, Inspire Link stays, Razor Needlehead, Screamy Boy, Unlock, Clive. Redirect Lightning, Zuko's Exile, Other Roku. Long shot. Do I need Pyromancer's goggles? The obvious answer is yes, of course I do. If anything, I should probably consider cutting, what is it? Double Vision first, since they're both 5 drops. And, like, so Double Vision works if I cast instants on the opponent's turns to get them copied. Pyromancer's Goggles works better than Double Vision if I'm only casting one spell per turn cycle, because it's helping to pay for that spell. I don't really have ways to untap Pyromancer's Goggles. I also get to float the mana with Pyromancer's Goggles if I don't have... Yeah, if I'm going to cut one of them, it's probably Double Vision at that point. Because the Goggles, I can float the mana and it keeps the rider on it over the turn, so I'd have to track the mana separately, but eventually I could get to the point where I'm casting and copying a bunch of instants and sorceries with the Pyromancer's Goggles, because I finally found some stuff. Maybe it's Chandra Hope's Beacon then, as like I think the Goggles and Double Vision are stronger than her as far as they're not vulnerable to being attacked to death once they're on the board. And they're 1 mana cheaper than her. Obviously, you can get a lot more out of Chandra if she stays in play, but she has to stay in play for that to be true. Yeah, she's more mana and more vulnerable. I think we cut Chandra. Just stick with Awakened Inferno as the only Chandra left. Five more cards and we're good. I keep looking at Disrupt Decorum. You know what? I can probably cut it. Not necessary. Fine, but not necessary. Now let's see if the one Chandra, yeah, is down here because she makes mana. That just leaves the 2 Awakened Infernos. Yep, okay. We cut these 3 off the list, which brings us to 69. Badumch. Alright, so clear these off. I want like 4 more cuts. Minimum. Price stays, Ruby Medallion stays, Flame Rift, Lens, O-Stone, Doubling Cube, Rate of Fire, Soulbright Flamekin stays. Alright. Once I have 6 mana, then he's 8 mana. Then on the next player's turn, he's 10 mana, and so on. I really don't want to cut him if I don't have to. Tunnel Guess. Could still be the Ingus. Feast and Famine's a bit too strong in this set, or in this deck. It could be Skullcrack. But I do have multiple other things that prevent players from gaining life. Skullcrack is also on my short list right now. Not cutting that in the head for basically anything. Could be Torbran. It might be Torbran, honestly. It does make Nykthos worse, but Nyx Lotus is always at least 2 mana because of our commander. Except in the extreme situations where I don't even have him and can't reasonably get him back down after the board has exploded. Who's Torbran? Stay, Sulfim, City on Fire. Brass too good. Or at least functional. Orabraska's functional, and if he ever gets to flip, then he's too good. Getting to flashback instants and sorceries from any graveyard should be enough to the game. Inscription, Immodane, Virtue. I would like to be able to cut something medium like Scorching Shot, but you don't get better red-based damage removal. Red damage-based removal than 2 mana, 5 damage. Like, it's this and Flame Slash are like the 2 most efficient kill a creature burn spells I have access to, so. And they work really well with some of the other cards like Immodane, so. Gorolf, eventually. Those. Want to keep that. It could be Bolt Wave. On the one hand, spending a single card just to deal 3 damage to each opponent with no other options attached to it is... It feels a bit weak, but at the same time, that's kind of what my deck is trying to do. You know, I cast this thing, I deal at least 3 to each opponent. I get my red mana rebated by my commander, so if I have anything else going on, the damage becomes either a lot more substantial for only the 1 mana, I get a lot more mana back for casting it, both. I might gain access to more cards. Yeah, I think Bolt Wave is too efficient, despite not being that impressive on its own. And too strong turn 1. Like, between turns 1 and 4, Ragavan has a lot of potential. And even in the late game, if somebody's vulnerable, just attack with him. Alright, so Torbrand brings us down to 68. I cut Lightning Strike yet? Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Weather Light, Redirect Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, yes, okay. I'm looking at Incinerate, it's like, did I cut Lightning Strike? And the answer is yes. For being the less impressive. Alright, I think I am gonna cut Gauntlet of Power. Like, I do not have room for all of them, I don't think. So, if I have to cut one, it's gonna be Gauntlet of Power, and then everything I said about Gauntlet of Might before holds true. I keep thinking about cutting Skullcrack, so we're going to take it off the list for right now. If it turns out that I don't have enough ways to stop life gain, then maybe it has to come back in, but... Or if your metagame is too life gain heavy, then you might want this back in, and you might want to swap, like, you know, Tunnel Ingus or something for the Sigma Lasher to give you another way to shut off life gain. What is going to be the last one? Army wants to just cut the Scorching Shot despite everything I said about it. While it is the most efficient creature burn, it is not the most efficient burn spell. So it only really gets that strong with cards like Imodain and Torolf. And we have plenty of other cards that work really well with them too. Alright, in the interest of actually completing this, I think for right now it's going to be Scorching Shot. We can always adjust the deck later if I decide that, you know, I don't have enough creature interaction that can handle larger threats. If I'm constantly sitting there looking at Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning and Flame Slash and wishing they could just deal one more point of damage, then maybe Flame Slash comes out for Scorching Shot at that point. But for right now, I kind of like the cheaper one. Alright. It's possible Flame Slash could also come out if I needed to make more room for spells. Alright, let's look at the lands now, because we cut a bunch of the lands off of the list, and we can possibly cut more of them. So Valakut definitely stays. Out of all of the non-basic lands on the list, still, Valakut is the one I am most interested in. Do I even need Cavern of Souls? I think I needed a lot more when I had a lot of goblins in the deck. So that way I could just name goblins and get them down. But aside from Electro himself, I don't super care, and I also don't have a lot of I guess they would be humans. Like, human is the only thing I can name, and then I only have a handful, like Immodane, so yeah, we get rid of that one. Nykthos, I can already see it down there. Nykthos can stay for right now. I think Shatterskull stays. Ooh, do I keep Den of the Bugbear? This was definitely going to make the list when I cared about goblins. It is nice to have a land that dodges sweepers and whatnot, and then can get up and deal some damage, but at the same time, it's not a mountain for the purposes of extra planar lens, gauntlet. Sorry about that. Extra planar lens, gauntlet, Valakut. I have a whole bunch of cards that actually care whether or not the land is a mountain specifically. So Den of the Bugbear gets a bit weaker there. I do like Lindblum because the mage token is super helpful. It's basically a gutter snipe that I get to keep in the land slot. It only does half as much damage, but it also doesn't waste a spell slot on it, so Arena of Glory can probably go. I cut most of the things that desperately need haste. So another non-mountain land. Pinnacle Monk. Again, it's a spell that's taking up the land slot, so I think I'm okay with that. And since the deck is just chock full of instants and sorceries anyway, being able to get back whatever one is the most relevant at the time, probably too good. Myriad Landscape turns itself into 2 other mountains, so I think that stays. It's actual ramp. So 7 non-mountains. So 72. That leaves us with room for 28 mountains. I think that works. Alright, so that's going to do it for Electro. That is his deck fully built. I would want to play with him a little bit, see if I can figure out if the mana is okay. Because he's very powerful with them, like, as far as generating mana goes, so he doesn't need anything else besides himself and a handful of lands in play in order to function properly. But once he starts dying, then it becomes more of an issue, and if it's obvious that he is the only reason I'm able to cast spells and do things, opponents are going to be a lot more likely to take him off the board, so he can't go too light on lands, but I do think he's at a good place right now. He might not actually need the other lands is the thing. Like, he might be better off with a few more spells in there because when he's functioning, he can just float the mana for turns and rebate 2 mana on things. So, alright, so that'll do it for this deck building session. I haven't decided 100% what Avatar legendary creature I'm going to build around. The frontrunners right now are Avatar Aang, the functionally 5 color because of his flip side, even though he only has 4 colors in his casting cost. That provides massive card advantage when you use the set mechanics, like all the bending techniques, and that huge rebate if you can flip him on all of your spells. Excuse me. The version of Iroh, the White Lotus or Grand Lotus, whatever his actual title is, also very strong. Obviously good with lessons where he lets you cast them for 1 mana on your turn as flashback from the graveyard, but also just gives all of your spells flashback on your turn, so... Excuse me. So he's very far up there. Toph first Metal Bender seems like a really cool build around. Having your artifacts count as lands and being able to earthbend onto things every turn means that you can do a lot of stuff with artifacts that have death triggers or that sacrifice for their effects, because now she'll be able to bring them back. So there's a whole lot going on with Avatar and a whole lot of fun build rounds. Those are my front runners right now, but I do want to look at all the other ones, and actually give it some serious thought. I don't know when exactly Lorwyn comes out, but we probably only have enough time to build at most 2 commanders from Avatar. I think this is the biggest time gap for sets right now, and then we're not going to really have time gaps next year. There are 7 sets coming out. So, unless I build very simple commanders at various points in time, it's going to be really hard to build more than 1 per excuse me, 1 per expansion set, so. Alright, well, my voice is starting to go, so I'll leave it there for right now. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.